Have you listened to episode 12? Why not? It's all about a Randy Orton question and answer from Wizard World, and I'm also joined by Bob McGee. Here's a clip. Download and listen. He put over Charlotte, said, and Natty, talking about how good they were, and also put over Alexa Bliss. So he really likes Bliss. They asked him who he wants to work, who he would want to work on his want to work list, just generally who he'd want to work instead of picking three guys like he did with the Corbin thing. The names that he came up with was AJ and Lawler. Apparently he loved the match he had with AJ Styles and wants to wrestle him more. Said that he was probably the best on the roster right now. I think that's pretty cool coming from, Orton. Lawler, he says he loves Lawler, really wants to work him. Hopefully with any time when they shift rosters, they'll be able to program him against Lawler. They were asked something about the Lesnar match. You could tell there was he hated everything about that match. He said that he spent all this time going over an interview where he said at any moment he could hit the RKO and it would be over. And he said the first RKO he had, Lesnar kicked out of, so it didn't mean anything. He also pretty much said, I never want to work Lesnar again. I had got a concussion. I was out for 3 weeks, and, it was pretty much the same.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's start the party.
Time for a new episode of Shootin The Shiznit. Welcome, everyone. That's right. This is episode 68. STS Studios live in St. Louis, Missouri. We got a special episode coming up. We want to thank Bob McGee at Pro Wrestling's Between the Sheets, Locals to Legends with Gene Jackson. You guys continue to let us post stuff for us. We do appreciate it. We're always getting them shout outs from Suplex City Limits, Creative Control. We appreciate that. And Who's Right Podcast. It's non-wrestling and it's for the adults, guys. You can reach me at Comic Book Mark BT, or I'm all over Facebook, Pro Wrestling and Whatever with John McAdam, my buddy John McAdam. Cool Kids Countdown is on Thursday, so we have the Cool Kids MMA Wrestling and MMA Facebook page. You can join that. Or you can reach us at Shootin The Shiznit, where all I post is episodes and news about Shootin The Shiznit. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, Pod Paradise, Spreaker, AM Radio. No, I'm not AM Radio. I'm just kidding, guys. And before we get to our guest today, I just want to say one thing. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of Kenny Bolin and do not necessarily reflect the official policy of Shootin The Shiznit. Guys, I just had to say that. Let's get to the episode. I'm bringing him from the green room. He's over there eating some milk and cookies. Kenny Bolin, how the hell are you?
Milk and cookies. Have you took a good look at me? Milk and cookies. I left strict orders that I wanted the new Coke Zero Sugar, and I wanted goddamn peanut M&M. What's the language on this show?
You can say what the fuck you want to, okay?
I wanted goddamn peanut M&Ms, and I didn't want no yellow ones.
You know what? You're one of the few guests I've had. This is like 65, 66 episode. I try to get you on 69, but I felt
my brother, my ex-brother would have liked that show.
But I'll make sure we get you that next time we have you on. I just want to bring you on. We're going to talk about a few things. Me and you have...
Nice microphones. These look like the ones I sold you. These the Bolin Media microphones?
Oh, yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah, man, these are nice. I thought I recognized these.
Go ahead and put your shit over before we get started. How's that?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Well, you can get the Bolin Media microphones. You see them on all my podcasts. Those are $59.95 each. The new Bolin Club hoodies just hit the market. Matter of fact, they're getting shipped to the pre-orders by the end of this week. Bolin Club shirts. Now, the hoodies are $59, only available on pre-order. Shirts are $29.95. You can get those directly from me. The Bolin Club hats for the first time ever. Those are being shipped to the pre-orders as we speak. My book, I Probably Screwed You Too, the mostly true stories of Kenny Starmaker Bolin. The countless DVDs that I have, a couple of DVDs featuring me and Jim Cornette. And, good Lord, something, the pause just went off, your television that I had over here watching. For crying out. Let me. That's nice TV y'all got, though. That's one of the 65-inch 4Ks. You don't get those.
Yeah.
You don't get those in a lot of studios.
Man, I was looking through all this stuff. Me and you kind of know, I've kind of been in touch with each other a couple of times, and you probably don't even remember it.
Oh, no, I certainly don't remember.
But I was part of the Dine and Dash one time with me, you, Dennis Carlozo. And the
Jesus. You were there for that?
The Piss Boys. A bunch of us decided that, it was time to go. So,
yeah. As a matter of fact, I was amongst the last ones out of that one, if you'll recall.
Yes, sir, you were.
My ex-wife, Gabrielle, the Prince, a very young Prince, wasn't even a year old yet, I don't think. He might have been a year old, but if he was, it wasn't much over. You know what? He wasn't a year old yet, because he hadn't learned to walk yet. So he was probably about 9 months old, because shortly after that Dine and Dash at the Opryland Hotel, we went to the Amway Grand Hotel in Michigan, and that's where Chris learned to walk at.
Well, I told a little bit of a story there when we were, me and John McAdam was talking about. It's just the things that Dennis done. I was young. I mean, 18, 19.
Well, how old were you then?
About, 18 or 19, and I was green.
I was probably late 27 then.
Yeah.
Late 20.
So green as hell, and y'all guys...
I'm 57 now, if that gives you an idea.
Right, and you guys just got up and said, hey, let's go. Come on, let's go. And I was like,
well, I wasn't even in on it. Corluza led me to believe that he had money and that he was paying for this shit. And then I see the prices are what, like $100 a breakfast?
Right, yeah.
It was some special fundraiser thing, and it was $100 a plate. And I'm going, well, shit. I work for Nick Goulas. I ain't got this kind of money.
Well, that's the thing. Dennis told me, come on, Tramel. We'll take care of you, man. We'll take care of you. So.
And my ex-wife is there, like, she's going, we can't afford this. Hell, that's damn near a month's rent by the time you factor all of us in. And the next thing I know, hey, King, I ain't got no damn money. We got to get out of here. I'm going, holy shit. So we had a couple of big rides parked out front. We're hiding around poles, hiding from security. Security's mainly trying to find Corluza because he's the most identifiable out of all of us. And God, that was a scary day. I thought we was all going to jail for not paying for our $100 breakfast. But how many would you say there was of us? It had to have been 12 of us if there was one.
That's what I'm saying. There was just so many of us, and I was just thinking I was being, I actually thought, like I said, I was just green in the sense that I thought I was being treated to, here's Dennis, man. He came up. He's paying for my big breakfast. This is expensive, and man, Dennis was taking care of it.
A brunch is technically what it was. It was served about 11 a.m. So you kind of had lunch and breakfast items there, and I was just for the life of me trying to figure out why in the hell we were dropping $100 a plate when we would all been just as happy to go to Pole Folks or go to Denny's or where the hell ever. We'd all been just as fine with it. But Corluza had no intentions of paying from the get-go, so that's how that all worked out. But, yeah, that story's been told many a time over the last 30 years.
It has, and it's just one of those things where I was there, you was there, and we didn't know each other, so that was
no, I didn't realize you were part of that because you were so young, and obviously, well, hell, I didn't even know the Piss Boys until that day. That was the first day I'd ever met the Piss Boys.
Right, and I had been.
And of course, you may have heard all the internet buzz is that a lot of talk going around that old Kenny Starmaker Bolin weighed heavily in Piss Boy Tom Robinson, TR Shocker, whatever the hell y'all know him as. Luring him away from the 605. Things weren't going exactly the way that he liked.
We talked about that last week, and I was going to bring it up with you, and let's just talk about it. So first of all,
let's talk about that.
I want you to tell my listeners pretty much what the hell happened. You and there's a bunch of guys. Number one, Austin Idol's gone now. You're gone. TR Shock's not doing it.
Of course, the Prince and Maya Doodle went with me when we left because Brian Last didn't feel that they were good for the show. They were running listeners off. Number one, let's think about this for a second. Even if you're the biggest Brian Last mark, which I can't believe there are any of those, but apparently there are. Even if you're the biggest Brian Last mark and you bring me on to do the show, I've been doing podcasts. This is my 13th year. I do the shows with Cornette, which 5 of the 6 highest rated shows Jimmy has are me. The only person ever to beat me is Stone Cold Steve Austin, not Jim Ross, not Rip Rogers, not Austin Idol, not anyone else he's ever had on his show has ever beaten me in the ratings. Why? Because we were good together. We were good entertainment together. And a lot of the shit that we said was shooting back and forth with each other. We truly meant what we were saying. We would just kind of do it in a funny way. And Brian Last was a part of that because he was the co-host. And if you noticed, whenever me, Jimmy, and Brian, or Alice Ratley, or MSL, or whoever the goddamn host was for any of those shows, that co-host did very little, if any, talking because it wasn't necessary. And so Brian Last gets us over there and acts like he has no clue who we are or what our shows are about. Like he didn't know that the Prince had been doing my shows for 12 out of 13 years. That he didn't know that Maya Doodle, as she calls herself, hadn't been doing my shows for the last 3 years. Well, they're bad. They're bad for the ratings. We're losing listeners. Well, number one, that's fucking impossible because this is my show on his so-called network. What listeners are there to lose? Anything that's coming over to hear me are now additional listeners, correct? Does that not make sense to you?
Hey, I got my own story about that. I felt the same way. But go ahead and I'll tell you what happened with me. So ahead.
These are new listeners. They're the only thing that we can do is gain him listeners. If we gain him 10, it's 10 listeners we didn't have over here that we've ever gotten before. He said, that's all I've got to go on. And then other people's were giving me the numbers. So once Brian went behind my back, pulled some shit with Cornette, tried to get Jimmy to talk me into getting rid of Maya and Chris because they ate him alive on show number 2. They were pretty rough on him on show 1, but on show 2 he tried to argue with us about the validity of a EPO, and it really didn't have as much to do with Russo filing the EPO on Jimmy and us motivating him to do so. To protect both of them. We didn't want Jimmy going to jail. We didn't want Russo getting killed.
Right.
We thought both was a pretty good possibility. It was that if you're a woman or a man and you're being abused, you're being violated, you're being assaulted, you're being molested, whatever the case, report it. Leave a paper trail. Because that way, when you blow that son of a bitch's head off that comes back to you again, you've got paperwork protecting you. They have been told to stay away from you. You shouldn't have been able to shoot them. They were supposed to be 500 yards away from you. If Cornette shows up on Russo's property, he's got every right to defend himself. Or whoever the person may be. That was what the show was about. And then Brian laughed, well, Russo's just a big fucking pussy. You're a pussy if you file an EPO. I said, no, he filed an EPO, number one, because we told him to. Number two, he was going to have Cornette put in jail for domestic threatening. I didn't want to see little Jimmy go to jail because he can't handle it. He would have probably committed suicide. Jimmy can't handle jail. And so we felt we were protecting both of them. Well, Brian won't back off from it. Russo's a pussy. You all don't know what you're talking about. I've got lawyers that work for me. Yeah, when lawyers work for you, that's normally because you're a defendant, motherfucker. Shut your goddamn mouth. Christopher has worked in a law office for the last 3 years that specializes in EPOs. Maya not only worked in a law office for the last 3 years, but also studies law here in Louisville. She's going to be an attorney once she graduates. So no, they're far more qualified to talk about this shit than you are, so you shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, he did, in and around about just about way. That's about what the three of us all had to say to him. We told him to shut up. We weren't going to hear his shit. You're not going to down talk what Maya and Chris just did. You're not going to fuck up our good work. So you need to get educated and shut your fucking mouth. Well, then he calls Jimmy and he wants us off the show. Or wants Chris and Maya off the show. They want to hear funny stories from Bolin. They don't want to hear this shit out of Chris and Maya. Well, no, it was Brian Last that didn't want to hear the shit out of Chris and Maya because they ate him alive and made him look like a fool for anybody that heard the shows, unless you blow Brian Last. And then, of course, you can write that in or leave it out. Let me see who.
My deal was I helped. I didn't.
Before you go. So he called Jimmy trying to get us off the show. Jimmy calls me up and we ripped Jimmy a new asshole, telling him to keep his fucking nose out of it. This is my show, not yours. And how dare Brian Last go to you trying to tell me who I can have on my fucking show. It's called the Bowling Alley. It ain't called the Brian Last Show, so fuck him. Matter of fact, I'm going to call that little motherfucker up, tell him what I think about him. I said, we're going to quit the fucking show. Jimmy's trying to calm me down. It ain't working. So he asked me to sit on it till Monday. Well, I sat on it till Monday. This is a Friday. And then come Monday, I felt the same way. So we put on Twitter that we'd quit. Well, 43 minutes later, he put up a tweet that he had fired us, that we weren't good for the show. We weren't a good meld. The numbers were horrible, and that we had to go. We weren't good for the Arcadian Vanguard network. So that's the type of little prick he is. And now he's claiming that Tom Robinson will no longer be back because he didn't handle the tribute shows properly. He took it like a schmuck, and he's no longer welcome back. Well, Tom Robinson had quit several days before then with no intentions of going back at my encouragement. So fuck Brian Last. He's a little piece of shit. He talks shit on everybody, but he don't talk shit on me and the Prince anymore. You know why? Number one, Chris is going to New Jersey later this fall. And if he wants to talk shit, Christopher would be more than happy to meet him somewhere and they can have a little talk about their differences, which Brian Last don't do real well with face-to-face confrontations because he's a little chicken shit bitch and he won't do that. He talks behind people's backs that he don't think will have to confront him. I'm anxious to see if he wants to talk a little shit with Tom Robinson because I got a feeling Tom will pay him a visit. He's not as far from him as we are. So, but now he don't talk shit about us because if he does, we'll pay him a visit and talk with him about it like men to men. Not provoking violence. We'll just see if he's man enough to show up and run the fucking shit out of his mouth that he's got to say behind a microphone, which obviously he's opted not to do here lately. So now go ahead.
Well, my dealings with him was just, with me and Tom being friends forever, he didn't want Tom to do any retweeting of my podcast.
I had heard that.
I actually had the Dr. X shirt. I was trying to sell those as part of my gimmick, and I put it up to I actually tweeted the 605. I said, some people listening to 605 might want to grab one of these shirts, and he blocked me from Twitter because I was selling a Dr. X shirt. So I was like, well, I'm done with him. I'm not going to do the drama, but Tom, me and Tom.
Well, he might have been scared you were going to outsell his magnets that he sells.
Okay, well, let's talk about you. Let me take a real quick commercial and we'll be right back, okay?
Why not?
Hey, I hope everyone's enjoying this episode of Shootin' The Shiznit. What I want you to do is join us this Thursday, that's right, this Thursday, for the Cool Kids Countdown, the special edition. Yes, I will be joined by my regular co-host there, Lance Levine, as we count down. Well, you'll just have to wait till Thursday. What? That's right, wait till this Thursday for the Cool Kids Countdown. All right, we're here with Starmaker. We talked a little bit more about our old buddy Brian Last there for a few minutes. But you know what, Kenny, I'm just going to come out and say it. must be the year of Bolin. I mean, all I've seen, Jericho, Steve Austin, this whole thing with Jim Cornette, which I put out yesterday. If anyone wants to question, PM me, DM me, do whatever you want to do to me, and I'll ask Kenny. I don't mind asking him.
No.
But this year seems to be, and I know you've been around the business for a long time, but this year's been good for you, man.
30 years as of November 26th, I think. Yeah.
And this has been a good year for you. Now, the thing with Jim Cornette was the first question I got out of the thing was ask him if it's a shoot or work. I know the answer to that, but what are you going to say to someone to ask you that?
It's like this Russo Cornette shit. This shit's been going on for 18 years between Jimmy and Vince, and there's still people that want in their hearts to believe that this is a work. It's all a big angle. I don't know anybody running 18-year wrestling angles, guys. This shit between me and Cornette, Jimmy hasn't spoke a word to me since I fired Brian last. And he did send me 2 emails. One of them stated that the reason he hadn't spoke to me is because he didn't want to yell at me, because I haven't been a good person and I associate with bad people. And you and your son have been talking shit about me. No, we weren't talking shit about him. We were telling the truth about him. Christopher just went on to tell a little bit more of the truth than Jimmy thought that Christopher should be telling. He never called us a liar. He was just mad that Chris brought some things out to the public that apparently the public may or may not have known. Some of them wanted to call Chris a liar. We don't know what we're talking about. Well, let me explain something to you, to anybody out there that don't think that we don't know what we're talking about when it comes to Jimmy. I've known him for 41 years. The only person I've known longer in the wrestling business is Jerry Lawler, who I've known for 43 years. I know Jimmy 10 times better, 100 times better than I know Jerry Lawler. Why? Because we have related and dealt with each other on a basis somehow, some way, practically every single day our entire lives, either through a phone call, through a tweet, well, obviously not Facebook, because Jimmy don't do Facebook, but normally through phone calls. And we have dealt with each other, if not every day, at least every week for our entire lives. We know we've been to each other's houses a million goddamn times since 1976. And there's nobody on the planet that I know better than Jimmy. Jimmy probably knows me better than anybody on the planet. Jimmy, when he made all these threats to Russo, I said, you wanted to put $5,000 in your pocket and see if Russo can take it from you. That sounds a bit fucking stupid to me. And number one, I know Russo don't need $5,000, so why don't you give me that offer? And and this was on his podcast. Jimmy immediately says no. So he was real sure that as in the worst health that I've ever been in my life, well, not the worst. The worst was about a year ago. But as bad a health as that I'm in, he was convinced that I could take the $5,000 off from him if I wanted it. But to create buzz, he wanted to make people think he was going to have $5,000 in his pockets, and if Russo could take it from him, he could have it. Russo's in a hell of a lot better shape than I'm in. I promise you that if Russo wanted that $5,000, he would take it in a fucking heartbeat. So why Jimmy puts this shit out there for 18 years, there's a reason for it. It is the only thing left that keeps him relative in the wrestling business. And that it's not a smack or a knock. He had a good little run, but unless he's bitching about Trump, bitching about religion, bitching about something local going on in his area, bitching about excavating work going on that's bringing his property value down, or talking about Russo, he ain't got anything to talk about. Because he's patched up with Bischoff, he's patched up with McMahon, he's patched up with Triple H. The only thing he's got left is Russo. And if he doesn't have somebody he can go off on one of his big rants on, then his listeners don't want to hear his shit. There's a lot of them don't want to hear his shit anymore anyway. And I believe it or not, guys, I still love Jimmy. I wish that we could have worked this out. I didn't end the friendship. He did. He ended it because I fired his co-host, and he thought that made him look bad. He thought it made him look even worse when I told him I would never do a show again as long as Brian Last is a part of it. Well, that's the same deal he gives me. I ain't going to have shit to do with you on anything that you do with Vince Russo. Well, that's fine. Just don't do anything that me and Russo do. So now he can't even be friends with me if I'm friends with Russo, because he thought I was working everybody for all this time. I just thought you were trying to mooch some of Vince Russo's followers, that you were just trying to keep people talking about you. Well, Jimmy, as you've seen, I don't need you, and I don't particularly need Russo for people to talk about me. I got on Steve Austin's show all by myself. I got on Jericho's show because he asked me to be on when he knew he was going to be in Louisville. And then all of a sudden you got worked into the show, and then I got very little time on the Chris Jericho show. So either way, I mean, I know that Jericho used to work for you. I was cool with that, and I was just happy to be a part of the show. But as you noticed, you weren't part of the Stone Cold Steve Austin show. And I am going to be back on his show to do a Walking Dead special here in the very near future. So, and then you put in your email that, well, you fucked us both because the most popular show that we ever did is when you were on, and that was the most listeners you ever had. Well, that's wrong. That was the most listeners you ever had, Jimmy. 5 of your top 6 shows were me. So you fucked yourself by fading me out. You faded me out by associating with a piece of shit like Brian Last. Now, if you're cool with that, you go ahead and hang with him. I would have still been your friend. I just wouldn't have been a part of anything Brian Last had to be a part of. And you could have been friends with me and just not been a part of anything that me and Russo had to do with. But you had to act like a fucking 5-year-old and say, well, I'm not going to be your friend anymore because you hang with bad people. You hang with Vince Russo. Fuck you. You have had horrible relationships with almost everybody you've ever worked with in the wrestling business. And then now all of a sudden you've patched up all those differences so you can try and get yourself back in the Hall of Fame, so you can try and get some little level of relevance again. You went to TNA, and that lasted for one series of TV tapings, and then you and Jarrett were out in a heartbeat because of the lowest ratings the show ever had in their goddamn lives. And you want to talk shit about me. You blow me away, son. You blow me away that you really think that I need you to function in life. I would have preferred to have you as a friend, but you acted like a 5-year-old and you did away with our friendship because I want to work with Vince Russo. Well, if you've noticed, my podcast world has really taken off without you. So if you think I needed you for my podcast to be a success, you're out of your fucking mind. And I would take you back as a friend today, but probably ain't going to happen because I'm not going to end my friendship with Vince Russo, and I'm not going to go bowing down to you because you think I need to be loyal to you because you don't like Vince Russo. So, being as you don't talk to me, being as you didn't take my phone calls, being as you iced me for 4 months because you didn't want to yell at me, well, yell at me now, motherfucker, because the word's out there. I've put it out. I would have been friends with you, but I don't think I need you as a friend anymore because you act like a little 5-year-old bitch. And that's exactly how I feel about the situation. So I probably should have said this on my own show. When I cried, they said they must have been putting nails in his toes.
Right.
You talk shit about me and my son on Jerry Lawler's show. And now they're scared to have me on because they're scared of pissing you off because of what we're going to say. And Russo has agreed to come on it with me. So who knows? We'll see if that ever happens or not. So the word will get out today. I don't know how many listeners that this young fellow gets here on his podcast, but if they want to play it back for you, that's just fine. Because I am sick of this nonsense. It's childish bullshit. I'd be happy to pick up the phone and work out differences with you today, but you're not going to punk me out, Jimmy. That bullshit ain't going to happen. You're not going to punk me out and make me pick who I can be friends with. I like Russo, and I happen to think he's a good man. If people don't agree, fuck them. They don't know Vince Russo like I do. And you honestly don't know him that well. You've really just talked shit on him for fucking 18 years. He's never harmed me, and until the day he does, he'll be my friend. You were my friend for 43 years until you turned into a 5-year-old little bitch and turned on me. So, I don't know what to tell you, Jimmy. 41 years, excuse me. So it's a shame that went down the tubes, but you're the one that asked for it to be this way, not me. So I'm not hiding from you, son. I'm not hiding from you. And I would have been happy to patch things up with you, but you sent your wife over here like a chicken shit little bitch to settle up our differences and to come and get your Letterman's jacket and your albums. Yeah, your DVDs that I used to work on for you. You wouldn't deal with me. You had your wife do it. That's cowardly. All you had to do was face me like a man and let me know what your fucking problems were, and you didn't do it. So, I didn't aim for this shit to come out on your show today, but you got me worked up. And
I'm sorry, man. I just want, that's the question. And you and Jimmy had a long relationship where you and Jimmy had a relationship on the show and in public, and then you would, what I'm saying, it was a work shoot kind of thing, like you said, at the very front. And some people, then that was the first question. Let's ask a couple more questions. Number one, I've got a real question. Did we name, you got the podcast there on Russo's network.
Right.
It's called the Bolin Alley. Is this because now this is what I was told, was that Last had copyrighted the Bolin Alley.
Well, as you've noticed, and here we go, that's Last putting out more bullshit again. I think the only thing that Last had was something that tied in with the
website?
With 605. Yeah, it didn't have it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he bought something on the
All
website
right.
or something.
So
Didn't
what we
have
call
shit
it the
to do with
Brolin Alley
me.
for instead
No,
of
the Brolin, as you notice, Facebook Live is still the bowling alley.
Right.
So if he owned it, I don't guess we would be doing that then, would we? So, God damn. This must be more of the 605 marks. If he owned it, I wouldn't be able to do Bowling Alley Live, guys. And I have one of the most successful Facebook Live shows going today. We average anywhere from as little as 4,000 or 5,000 live views to as much. Well, the show I cried on got like 25,000 views. So, we do pretty good for Facebook Live, and that is the Bowling Alley. We became the Brolin Alley. I could call it the Bowling Alley today if I wanted to. The reason we called it the Brolin Alley was because we told everybody, no, we're not going to take the Bowling Alley to the Vince Russo network. We're not going to do that.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
We took the Brolin Alley to the Vince
right.
Russo network. So,
Good
no,
deal.
everybody thinks that's dumber than a goddamn fucking box of rocks, or elsewise I wouldn't be the Bowling Alley on Facebook, you goddamn idiot. Shit.
Okay, so I got two other things, and these have nothing to do with what we talked about today. But
It's a good thing.
Yeah, I know. We cut him promo on Cornette. There we go.
Well, it wasn't a promo. That was telling him how I feel.
I know. I understand,
Promos are when you're
Kenny,
talking up. Promos are when you're talking up a match. This ain't no match. This is just how I feel about the situation. It's been over 4 or 5 months that he hadn't spoke to me because I'm friends with somebody he don't like. How fucking fifth grade is that?
Yeah,
Like I said, I would put our differences aside today if he'd grow up and be a fucking man, but he ain't going to do that. So I'm not even going to put any stock into it because it ain't going to happen. As long as I'm friends with Russo, Jimmy will never be my friend, and I think that's fucking pathetic. But go ahead.
All right, we got rumors that there's some very old Memphis area footage that Danny Davis and Jim have that they've never released. And if anyone knows whether this is true or not, you would know about it.
Well, they don't have anything that Jerry Lawler didn't give them, so
okay.
I would say that's not true.
All right.
They have some old footage, and it has been rarely seen. And we have asked Jerry Lawler to collaborate, and I was going to be a part of mass producing all that. But I'm not going to say that it ain't never been seen. I'm just going to say it's been rarely seen.
Oh, okay.
But I think Jerry Lawler is technically the owner of it, even though supposedly he sold it all to those guys in Cleveland. Jerry Jarrett did give us permission to go forward with it, but Jimmy's scared of pissing Lawler off, and Lawler hasn't really given it his blessing to do anything with it. And I don't think Danny owns any of it. I think it's all Jimmy, to be honest with you.
And what year are we talking about here?
Oh, I would say it's primarily 70s and 80s would be my guess. Wow. And, I've got one DVD I used to put out called Memphis Classic. That was 6 hours of some of the good old stuff. And then I got it from Jerry Lawler years ago when I was about, 21, 22 years old, I guess, if I was even that old. And, and I used to sell that DVD, but for whatever reason, I haven't sold that DVD in a long time, yet I still have it. So,
there's that 70s stuff is, when Lance, if you read some of the old Lance interviews, that's one of the things he talked about, that they kept recording over that stuff. And if he would have known there was any kind of market, It
was idiotic that they did that.
Yeah, it was. But who would ever think? Yeah.
I can't believe they didn't think that there was value to that stuff even back then, but no, they kept recording over it because tapes were so expensive then, and I can vouch for them. My first shows that I was recording on were on beta tapes by Zenith, and a 5-hour videotape would cost $24.
Right.
And a 4.5-hour tape was $19.95. And I remember me and Jimmy about shit our pants when LS Airs had them on sale once for $10 a tape. We lost our fucking minds and bought a case of them. For $10.
That's crazy. We'll have to have you on sometime just talk about tape trading because that was funny. One last question. I'll let you go. I know you're a busy man. Like I said, I'm going to call this the Year of Bolin episode. So there we go. Cesaro. Now I'm just getting these questions that people sent out to me. Did Cesaro ever live in your basement?
Cesaro?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Cesaro. It was Aaron the Idol Stevens who went on to become Damien Sandow.
Right.
Damien Sandow did live in my basement. Cesaro did not. I don't know where that came from. Cesaro and I had a few meetings, give or take, at OVW during television shows. But no, he never lived in my basement. To my recollection, he never set foot in my house. I do know that there have been a few of the wrestlers that have come over and helped me move furniture before.
Right.
Ron Waterman had helped me move a big screen, if you remember Ron Waterman from his MMA days.
Right.
Who was it, the one that used to be Dadgummit? He used to be Shelton Benjamin's tag team partner. What was his name when they first went up to WWE?
Charlie Haas.
Yeah, Charlie Haas helped me move once from one of my old homes into another home, and of course Damien Sandow helped out quite a bit, and Brock Lesnar had been over to the house quite a few times. Mark Henry was a dear friend that hung out with us a lot. Rico Constantino was probably my best friend in the business. Paul London hung out with us quite a bit. Carlito, Mike Mondo. So a lot of those guys hung out, but the only one that lived in my basement was Damien Sandow.
All right, one last question I'm going to ask because I see it a lot on Facebook when you're talking about it. And you when we were talking in the inbox of Facebook. Kitty, how's your health? I mean, I know we've been in and out of the hospital the last couple of years, and I actually sent something, and like I said, we didn't even really know each other, but I kind of one of those things where you worry about somebody you don't really even know. So how are you doing? How's the health?
Well, these days I'm actually doing pretty good. Over the last year, I've lost 145 pounds, give or take.
Wow.
Some weeks I'll be up 10, some weeks I'll be down 10, just depending how much pasta I want to have that week, but and how strictly I take my Bumax, which keeps fluid off from me, and sometimes you just don't want to go to the bathroom for 5 straight hours. So there are days that I'll miss that, but within 10 to 15 pounds, I've hung around about 150 pounds in weight loss over the past year. And feeling much better. Haven't been in the hospital since I went in for surgery on November 8th. Had some complications, went back in, didn't get back out till mid-January. So we're sneaking up on 10, 11 months that I haven't been in the hospital. And there for a while, you could count on me being in a hospital about every 2 or 3 months. And somebody telling my son, well, this might be his last trip. He may not be coming out. And I know he got that news like 3 or 4 times. They never told me. But they would tell my son, and they might tell my brother if he was down there. But I haven't spoke to him in about 2 years. Right. So, but yeah, doing much better, feeling much better. People said that they can tell it in my podcast that I feel pretty good. And, of course, a lot of those are on video now with Vince Russo's network. And one other cheap plug we'll get in, I do the Raw SmackDown reviews with Vince Russo. I do those on, we record them on Tuesday, right after SmackDown, and they're available on the Realm Network the next day on video, unedited, and then Podcast One gets the edited version on Thursdays. And then, of course, the Brolin Alley I do every 2 weeks, which air every other Wednesday. And we're hoping to have Conan on the next one. We had, who did we have? We had Disco. We had Disco Inferno on. And then the last one we had is where the big blow-up happened between me and Vito, which, yes, folks, was a 100% shoot. And that thing might be getting hotter as we go because, let's say it's a developing situation that has got a lot of interesting information that's been forwarded to me from people all over the country. And
oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right, Kenny, I'm gonna let you go. I know it's almost dinner time for you, and I want.
The prince is taking me out for an early dinner at the Olive Garden today, and so if I got to go that early and get a free dinner, then I guess I ought to go.
All right, we want to thank Kenny for joining us, the Starmaker. Hey guys, remember we're the best little wrestling podcast in the business. Be here same bat time, same bat channel.